I was beyond excited when my family decided to throw me a graduation party. But the moment I opened the cake box, the words, "Congratulations, loser," stared back at me. My parents burst into laughter as if it were some harmless joke. I didn't find it funny. I stood up, grabbed my belongings, and walked out. But not before doing this. 3 weeks passed before they called, their voices filled with panic. Because for the first time in my life, I had believed my parents were genuinely proud of me. When I walked into the house, it was fully decorated. Real decorations. Blue and silver streamers hung from the ceiling, and a huge banner that read, "Congratulations, Ryan," stretched across the living room. There were people too. Family, neighbors, and even a few of my dad's colleagues. And there was real food laid out, not just greasy pizza boxes tossed on the table. I had never witnessed them put in this kind of effort for me. Not ever. They had done it for Jake, though. When he got into college the first time, they went all out with a huge celebration, invited all his friends, even gifted him a brand new laptop. And when he flunked out the following year, they never once scolded him. No raised voices, no blame. But for me, there was never anything. No applause, no parties. They always said I was the dependable one, the one who didn't need fuss or attention. That's what they told me every single time I achieved something. Yet now here I was, standing in a room dressed up just for me. My mom wrapped me in a hug, smiling like she truly meant it. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," she said, her voice soft and full of warmth. "This is a big accomplishment." I blinked. I wasn't even sure how to process it. Years of swallowing the pain of never feeling like I measured up. And now, suddenly, maybe things were shifting. Maybe I had finally done something worthy of their pride. My dad slapped my back, chuckling. "First college grad in the family, huh? Look at you." I smiled. Really smiled. For the first time, I allowed myself to believe they actually saw me. Maybe I wasn't just an afterthought anymore. Then I noticed my brother off to the side, glued to his phone, completely uninterested. Typical. But even that didn't bother me today. Today was mine. Someone handed me a drink. There was a toast. People came up to congratulate me, offering handshakes, asking about my future. I was floating. Then they brought out the cake. It was massive, fancy looking, definitely not from a grocery store shelf, the kind you custom order days in advance. My mom carried it in with a bright smile, setting it right in front of me. My dad nodded at it, still grinning. "Go on, take a look," he said. Still caught in the joy of the moment, I leaned forward, grinning, letting myself believe this was real. But then I read the writing. "Congratulations, loser." My stomach sank like a rock. It felt like I'd been punched without warning. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe I was reading it wrong. Then the laughter started. It began with my dad, just a small chuckle, but then it grew into a full-on laugh like this was the most hilarious thing he'd ever seen. My mom giggled too, trying to stifle it behind her hand like it wasn't that bad. And Jake? He was nearly in tears from laughing, doubled over, clutching his sides, barely able to breathe. "Oh, come on," my dad said, seeing my face. "It's a joke," Jake smirked. "Damn, Ryan, don't look so shocked. You know it's funny." I felt like an idiot, a complete utter idiot. Of course this wasn't real. Of course they weren't proud of me. Why would they be? Why would they change? I scanned the room. A few people looked uncomfortable, glancing at each other. But no one said anything. No one stood up for me. Not one person. I swallowed down the nausea rising in my throat, willing myself to stay composed. A joke. That's all I was to them. Something inside me settled. It wasn't anger, not in the way they expected. It wasn't sadness either. It was something sharper, something clearer. I picked up the glass in my hand and slowly, deliberately raised it. The room quieted slightly. Everyone watching, waiting to see how I would react. I smiled to my family. I said, my voice smooth, even for always being exactly who I thought you were. The laughter died down to this party. I continued, nodding toward the decorations, the cake. So much effort, so much thought put into it. I'll never forget it. The silence stretched, my mom shifted uncomfortably. My dad's smile twitched, and Tesso. The future, I said, lifting my glass slightly higher. Because I've finally learned exactly how to treat you the way you've always treated me. No one spoke. I held their gazes for just a second longer. Let the tension thicken. Let the unease settle into their bones. Then I downed my drink in one go, set the glass down carefully on the table, and turned toward the door. I grabbed my bag, slung it over my shoulder before I walked out. I glanced back one last time. Jake was watching me now, the smirk on his face faltering slightly. My dad cleared his throat. "Oh, come on, Ryan. Don't be dramatic. It's just I smirked. "Oh, and one more thing, but you'll figure it out soon enough." Then I walked out the door. No yelling, no outbursts, no tears, just silence. A thick, suffocating silence that followed me as I left. I didn't need to see their faces to know the confusion was already setting in. They were trying to brush it off, trying to tell themselves I was just being sensitive, that I'd get over it, that I'd come back. They had no idea what was coming. But they would soon enough. They would. I was never the son they wanted. Jake was. From the moment we were kids, it was obvious he could do no wrong. He was the golden child, the favorite, the one my parents lit up for, the one they defended, protected. Dotted on the one who got second, third, fourth chances, no matter how badly he screwed up, and me. I was the one they tolerated. I used to wonder why. What made him so much more deserving than me? What did he have that I didn't? I worked hard. I got good grades. I stayed out of trouble. I did everything right. And yet I was the one they dismissed. It started small when I was 6. I won a school spelling bee. I came home beaming, holding my little certificate, waiting for them to say something, anything. Jake had drawn some scribbles on a piece of paper. That same day, my mom gushed over it, put it on the fridge, called him her little artist. My dad ruffled his hair, said he had real talent. I held out my certificate, hopeful. My dad glanced at it, unimpressed. Spelling. That's not a real skill. My mom smiled at me, but it was a distracted kind of smile. "Oh, honey, that's nice, but don't brag." Okay, I wasn't bragging. I just wanted them to see me. By the time I was 10, I had stopped trying. Jake got in trouble at school. The teacher was being unfair. Jake broke something in the house. It was an accident. Jake got bad grades. Not everyone's a nerd like Ryan, my mom said. If I so much as rolled my eyes at them, I was being disrespectful. If I asked for something, I was being ungrateful. When Jake got into college, they threw him a massive party when I got in. My dad barely looked up from his phone. I told myself I didn't care. It wasn't like I needed their approval, right? But some small, stupid part of me still hoped. Hoped that maybe if I just kept my head down, if I worked hard, if I proved myself, one day they'd see me, one day they'd be proud. Then college came. I knew better than to expect them to help with tuition. I didn't even ask. I got a scholarship, took out loans, worked part-time to cover what I could. Jake, though, he barely made it through high school. And yet, when he got into a second-rate college, my parents were so proud. "We'll help you with whatever you need," my mom had told him. And they did. Paid his tuition, bought him a car, sent him money every month. Jake partied his way through his first year, skipped classes, barely passed his exams. By the second year, he flunked out completely. And my parents, they never got mad at him. They never blamed him. They actually felt bad for him. It was too much pressure, my mom had said, shaking her head. We probably pushed him too hard. Pushed him. They handed him everything. But the real slap in the face, the part that made something in me finally snap. They started planning his second chance. They found another college, made calls, pulled strings to get him in again. They told him this time would be different. They told him they'd still support him, pay for what he needed, make sure he had an apartment close to campus. And then they told me I'd be co-signing his lease. Like it was a given, like it was my responsibility to make sure Jake had a place to live while he got his second chance. "You have good credit," my dad had said. "It won't cost you anything. It's just a signature." I should have said no. But I didn't. I was so used to doing what they expected of me that the words were out of my mouth before I even thought about it. Yeah, fine. They barely even acknowledged it. Just assumed I'd fall in line like always. Jake didn't say thank you. Didn't even acknowledge what I was doing for him. And that was the moment I realized it would never stop. No matter what I did, I would never be enough for them. I could have landed on the moon and my dad still would have shrugged. My mom might have offered a polite smile. And Jake, he'd just crack a joke about how I was trying way too hard. It wasn't that they didn't notice me, they just didn't care. So when I stepped into that graduation party and saw the decorations, the banner, my mom's beaming smile, and my dad shaking my hand, I let myself think just for a moment. Maybe this time it's different, maybe this time they're actually proud of me. And then came the cake and the laughter. And that's when I knew they were never going to respect me. But that was okay, because after that night, they would never get the chance to use me again. I walked out of that house, but not before I made one final call. Not before I did the one thing they never imagined I had the guts to do. Not before I ensured that in exactly 3 weeks they'd be the ones calling, frantic, pleading, realizing too late they had finally pushed me over the edge. 3 weeks went by before they figured it out. At first, I ignored their calls, not purely out of spite. Well, maybe a little, but mostly because I just didn't care anymore. I had spent years responding to every demand, dropping everything when they needed help, contorting myself to earn approval from people who never really valued me. So when the missed calls started piling up, when my mom's voicemails came one after another, when Jake's texts shifted from "dude, WTF" to "you need to fix this," I left them all unopened. No replies, no responses. I already knew why they were calling. And the longer I stayed silent, the more frantic they became. Mom tried playing it cool at first. "Sweetheart, something strange is happening with Jake's apartment. Can you give me a call?" Then she switched to confusion. "Ryan, Did you forget something? With the lease? The landlord just told Jake you're not listed as his co-signer anymore. Then came Dad, furious and leaving angry voicemails. What the hell did you do? You gave your word. You need to make this right. Call me back. And finally, Jake. He skipped. The pretending altogether. No fake concern, no sugarcoating, just straight up fury. You screwed me over. Fix this now. I smirked when I read that one. 3 weeks earlier, right after I left the party, I had gone straight to my car, pulled out my phone, and called the landlord's office. I officially removed myself as Jake's co-signer. That was it. No drama, no warning, just a simple final decision. And now the consequences were sinking in. Jake's lease now invalid. And they were just beginning to feel the weight of it. They had all assumed I'd already locked it in. I'd said yes before, hadn't I? I had always gone along with their plans, never pushed back, never said no. They believed I was still that same person, but they should have known better. Because the second I saw that cake, I made up my mind. I was finished letting them walk, all over me. And now, for the first time ever, they were the ones dealing with actual consequences. And it was absolutely glorious. On day 22, I finally picked up the phone. I let Dad's number ring twice before answering. Then I sat back, waiting for the inevitable explosion. Didn't take long. "What the hell did you do?" he barked. I tilted the phone away from my ear a bit, listening as his rant kicked into high gear. "You made a promise. You gave your word. Your brother's lease is collapsing. You need to fix this now." I didn't say anything, didn't argue, didn't explain. I just let him burn himself out. Eventually, he realized I wasn't interrupting. He went quiet for a second. Then his voice dropped into that low, dangerous tone, the one he always used when he wanted me to feel guilty. "You need to be a man and take responsibility." That almost made me laugh. Responsibility. Where was this speech when Jake failed out? Of school? When he wasted the money they threw at him when he spent his entire life skating by on excuses? I exhaled slowly, then I finally spoke. "I don't think I will." Silence. I could practically hear the disbelief crackling on the other end of the line. What I said, I repeated calm, steady. "I don't think I will." The silence stretched then like a dam breaking you selfish little. I hung up. He called back immediately. I let it ring. Then Jake tried. I let that one go too. Then my mom. And this time I picked up because I already knew how this was going to go. She started soft. "Sweetheart, we need to talk." I hummed, unimpressed. "Do we?" She sighed like I was being unreasonable. "I know you're upset. We all know that party didn't go how you wanted." I scoffed. "Is that what we're calling it? A party?" She ignored the sarcasm. "But this is serious, Ryan. Your brother's future is on the line." I almost laughed. His future, when had they ever cared about mine? I had clawed my way through school without their help, worked myself to exhaustion, took on loans, and where were they supporting Jake? And now they wanted me to sacrifice for him too. I kept my voice steady, measured. "I think Jake will figure something out," she bristled. "You know he can't get approved on his own. Sounds like a him problem, Ryan." She tried again, a little sharper. "Now, this is what family does." "No," I said, and my voice finally lost its patience. This is what I did for years. And what did I get for it? A cake that said, "Congratulations, loser." Silence. The first real silence. I let it sit there. Let her soak in it. Then I said softly, "And now you're realizing how big of a mistake that was." Her breath hitched. It was just a joke. I smiled. So is this. Then I hung up. I stared at my phone for a long time, waiting, half expecting another call, but none came. For the first time in my life, they had nothing to say because they knew. They knew I was serious, and they knew they had finally pushed me too far. But the best part, this wasn't even the end, because they still hadn't realized just how badly they had screwed up, and soon they'd be calling again, begging. Because I had done more than just cancel a cosign. I had walked away from all of it, and without me, their golden boy was about to lose everything. They didn't call again for a few days. They didn't call again for a few days. I wasn't surprised. My dad had probably ranted and raged about how I was an ungrateful disappointment. My mom had probably cried about how I was tearing the family apart. And Jake had probably sulked, throwing a tantrum because for the first time in his life, he wasn't getting what he wanted. But I knew it wasn't over because there was still one last thing they hadn't realized yet. And when they did, that's when the real panic would start. I didn't have to wait long on a Friday evening. As I was settling in with a beer and some peace and quiet, my phone buzzed. Jake. I smirked and let it ring. He tried again and again. By the fifth call, I finally answered, letting my voice stay relaxed. Thought we were done here. His voice came through loud, frantic. What the hell did you do? I took a slow sip of my beer. Be more specific. The money, Ryan, the tuition money, it's gone. Ah, there it was. I smiled because this was the part they hadn't figured out yet. See, it wasn't just the co-signing. I had pulled out of it was everything I had. Been helping them financially for years, covering little things, making up for missed payments, loaning money. I was never repaid. And when they started planning Jake's second attempt at college, they casually suggested I pitch in. You're doing well now, my dad had said, like it was nothing. You should help your family. I hadn't agreed, but they took it for granted that I would. They assumed, as always, that I'd fall in line. So I did the one thing they never expected. I cut them off completely. The tuition deposit they were expecting from me never happened. The payments I used to make on their behalf gone. The quiet, financial safety net I had unknowingly been for them vanished. And now they were drowning. Jake had lost his apartment. Now he was losing his second chance at school because without my money, without my help, without my credit, he had nothing. And I had never felt lighter. Ryan, you don't understand. Jake was still ranting in my ear. The school called. They said the payment never went through. I don't have enough to cover it. I'm about to lose my spot. I let out a low hum. Damn, that sucks silence. Then his voice sharpened. Fix it. That made me laugh. Actually laugh. It was incredible, really, how deep his entitlement ran. Even after everything that had happened, he still acted like I owed him something. You're serious? I asked, shaking my head. You said you would help, he snapped. No, I replied calmly. You assumed I would. There's a big difference. He stammered. Mom and Dad said that I cut you off. I finished for him. Yeah, I bet they did. But here's the thing. I don't care what Mom and Dad said. There was a pause, tense silence. Then, quieter this time, he tried another tactic. "Ryan, you know this is my last shot, right?" And there it was, that note of desperation in his voice, the moment it hit him that he was truly screwed. I leaned back, keeping my tone composed. "Yeah," I said. "I know." He swallowed hard. So, I repeated, stretching the words slowly. "You'll figure something out." That was the same phrase my dad had tossed at me when he drained my college savings. The same line they all used every time I needed help, every time I fought alone. Now they could experience it for themselves. Jake finally snapped. "You're such a bitter piece of... You're just doing this to punish me." "No," I said evenly. "I'm doing this because I finally learned how to treat you the same way you've always treated me." I let that truth hang in the air before ending the call. The next day, it was my mother. She was already crying when I answered. "Ryan," she choked, "we need to talk." I sighed. "No, we really don't. Jake's going to lose his spot," she said, her voice heavy with sobs. "You don't understand." "I understand completely," I cut in. She paused, took a breath. "You're punishing all of us for a stupid joke." I smiled faintly. "No, Mom. I'm finally treating you the way you've always treated me." She let out a soft gasp like the words had actually wounded her. And that's when I realized she wasn't just calling for Jake anymore. She was calling for herself too. Because now that I wasn't paying their way, they were floundering. All the small things I used to cover, the quiet ways I supported them, they were finally noticing the absence. "You have to forgive us," she pleaded. "We're family." I gave a small dry laugh. "Funny," I said. "You only bring that up when you need something." She hesitated. "Ryan, please." Now I could hear it. Real fear in her voice. It wasn't just Jake's education that had fallen apart. It was the entire structure of their lives. Because I had walked away. Because this time I wasn't coming back. Because they had finally crossed a line they couldn't uncross. I let the silence drag just a little longer. Then I said what I needed to. "I don't owe you anything," I said firmly, my voice steady and absolute. "Not anymore." And for the final time, I hung up the phone. That was the last time I spoke to them. Of course they tried. The phone kept ringing for months. Guilt trips, fake apologies, desperate requests for one last favor. But I had made my decision, and for once, I chose myself. Jake never made it back to school. The deposit deadline came and went. He lost his place. My parents didn't have the funds to cover it in time. They had already exhausted every last option trying to support him. There was no backup plan. A relative eventually told me Jake had to move back in with them. A grown man living under the same roof as our parents. No degree, no job, no clear path forward. Honestly, it felt poetic. For years, I had been the one they overlooked, the one they dismissed and laughed at. Now